When you think of great war films, usually you think of Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, The Deer Hunter, Platoon, Saving Private Ryan, all great war films. But I want to focus on some that might be new discoveries for you. This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. This is my closet full of all the stuff that I love. And today, 3 great war films by a great director, Samuel Fuller. The first film I want to talk about is The Steel Helmet. This is from 1951 and written and directed by Samuel Fuller. His background is as a writer and a journalist. He was also a war veteran, so it lends an authenticity to all of these films. This film is very gritty and very unsentimental, and it really focuses on how the war affects the psyches of the different soldiers. It's a low-budget film, cost about $100,000 to make. It was shot in 10 days in Griffith Park here in Los Angeles. The extras were actually UCLA students, and it is shot in beautiful black and white. The main character is named Sergeant Zach, played by Gene Evans. Really good performance. And he, at one point in the film, it takes place during the Korean War. At one point in the film, he unofficially adopts a Korean war orphan, a little boy, and he nicknames him Short Round, which, if that sounds familiar, there's a similar character in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom named Short Round, and I think Spielberg probably named him that as an homage to this film. At one point in the film, Sergeant Zach, who's a very no-nonsense, straightforward, down-to-earth, realistic type of person, says it's best to be in the U.S. infantry because if you're in the U.S. Air Force and you die, you still have to fall to the ground from the air. If you're in the U.S. Navy and your ship goes down, you still have to drown in the water. If you're in the U.S. infantry and you die, at least you're on the ground already. So it's that kind of no-nonsense, straightforward, hard-hitting dialogue you hear in a film like this. This is an episodic film. It's mainly about the soldiers, and they're just sort of waiting for the next thing to happen. It's the Korean War was still going on at this point. It ended in 1953, so this is shot in 1951. There are some derogatory words used to refer to Asians in the film, but race is also dealt with in an interesting way. At one point in the film, they take a Korean as a prisoner of war, and a black American soldier is talking to the POW, and the POW says, "Why are you fighting for the Americans, considering all they did to your people?" At another point in the film, the Korean POW says to a Japanese American soldier, "Why are you fighting for the Americans? Didn't they put your family in camps? Maybe they put you in a camp as well." So it's kind of thrown out there, which is interesting for this time in history and considering the war is still going on. At the end, there's a title card that says simply, "There is no end to this story." Now, if you want to see The Steel Helmet, I think you can rent it somewhere. Unfortunately, if you want to purchase the actual DVD, it's only part of this 3-disc set, which is called The First Films of Samuel Fuller, and you can't buy it by itself. But check it out, and you might find it streaming or able to rent on Amazon or a service like that. Now, shortly after The Steel Helmet, same year, 1951, Sam Fuller made this film, Fix Bayonets. And it also takes place during the Korean War. Fuller wrote and directed it, also in black and white. This one really takes time to build tension. It doesn't rush anything. It uses silences to build tension and suspense, instead of music that telegraphs everything they want you to feel, which I appreciate. I think this is a little grittier and a little darker than The Steel Helmet. It's about men, in close quarters, waiting for the next thing to happen. Sometimes those environments they're in are less than ideal. Sometimes they lose their temper and they snap at each other. And it even has a few shocking moments, especially considering it's a 1951 film. It also likes to focus on the men's faces so we can try to feel what they're feeling. And again, without any music to telegraph that feeling to us. It again is an episodic film, and with them waiting for stuff to happen. And I think it also influenced a couple of other films. For example, there is a scene where one of the soldiers is stuck in the middle of a minefield, so another soldier has to make his way to go get him back. And that reminded me of a scene from The Hurt Locker. There's also another scene where it shows each soldier and you hear a voiceover of what they're thinking, what they're going through right now, how they're feeling, what they want to do when they get back home. And that reminded me of the war film The Thin Red Line by Terrence Malick. Finally, we have a film that is from 1980. It's called The Big Red One. And this is a bigger budget for Samuel Fuller. It's in color. It's quite a bit longer, about twice as long as the other two films. The other two films only clock in about 90 minutes each. This one's a little over 2.5 hours. The story behind this film is it was cut quite a bit by the studio. And so in 2004, some people got together and they found the missing footage. Using Fuller's original script, they reconstructed it, adding 40 minutes more to the movie. And that's what you get in this disc. So you have a 2-disc set here. And disc 1 is the reconstructed version of the film. And then disc 2 is the story behind the reconstruction and some interviews with the actors. It's about the first infantry division in World War II. Again, it follows an episodic type of format where they go to different locations and experience different things, major battles, really. Robert Carradine plays the character of Zab, and he also provides the voiceover narration, and he's really representing Samuel Fuller and what he went through as a soldier during this time. Now, the secret weapon of this film, so to speak, is the man who plays the sergeant, Lee Marvin. Now, originally the studio was pushing Samuel Fuller to have John Wayne play the sergeant, and Fuller was fine with John Wayne's work, but he said he's just not right for this role. He needs somebody who looks more tired, and he got that at Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin also is a war veteran, so that helped to the authenticity of this role also, and he's great in it. One of the young soldiers is played by Mark Hamill, and Mark Hamill's character is having a problem with shooting the enemy, and he says to Lee Marvin, who plays the sergeant, I can't murder people. And Lee Marvin says, we don't murder the enemy, we kill them. So it's that kind of hard-hitting, very down-to-earth, realistic dialogue you're going to get in these films. It begins with a title card that says, "This is a fictional story based on actual death." In this film, because it's a bigger budget, there's more locations used. There are more characters outside just the group of soldiers, unlike the other films. There's more music used to telegraph what's happening. At the end, the voiceover from the character of Zab says, "Surviving is the only glory in war." And I think that theme really carries across all three of these films, because that's the bottom line: is you need to survive, put your emotions aside, any other feelings aside. Surviving is the whole thing, bottom line. Personally, I kind of prefer the other two earlier films just because they're a little simpler, they're a little grittier, and I think the black and white lends it a feeling of a more documentary type feeling and a more heightened realism to them. But this is a great film. All three of these films I really recommend. And this one as well, you can purchase, just like Fixed Bayonets, you can purchase also. You can purchase this one, and I'm sure you can find it streaming somewhere, or you can rent it on a streaming service. Now, some people could argue that it's impossible to make an anti-war film because just the fact that you're putting it up there on the screen sort of glorifies war. You know, you make the decision on that. I do know in the Kurt Vonnegut's great novel Slaughterhouse-Five, in the introduction, he makes a statement about writing an anti-war novel is like writing an anti-glacier novel. It's kind of pointless, and it's always going to be there, and it's not going to make a difference. So I think that's for everybody to decide. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments about war films or novels that you appreciate, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. And I will see you next time.